Hey, thanks for tuning in. Someone just had a very special birthday. Not me, silly. The rifle. Hey guys, welcome to the Homestead. It's going to be a fun video. I love holding pieces of history, and that's what I'm doing in this video right here. So I had a friend of mine, I'll give you a bit of a backstory. He said he had a firearm that he wanted me to look at. He wasn't sure of its age or if it was even reliable or if it was safe to shoot or if it was worth anything, and just wanted me to take a look at it and give me an opinion on it and maybe just look it over, make sure it was okay. I said, okay, sure. I always like to get my hands on another gun. And so he brought this over and we looked at it. And when I first took it out of the case, I immediately recognized the action. However, I have never seen one up close, but I've seen enough pictures. It's an Enfield rifle, okay? But the problem was there was something different about it. I recognized the action, but I couldn't recognize the rest of the gun because most of those rifles, the Enfield rifle, the stock comes all the way top and bottom of the barrel, almost all the way to the end of the barrel. And this wasn't like that. And plus it had a scope on it, which obviously was mounted later. So I was confused and I looked at the nomenclature and it says Eddystone on there. And I'm like, that doesn't ring a bell. So I'm confused at what exactly this is. Anyway, so I get it home and find out that it is definitely an Enfield rifle. And Enfield rifle, and it's a little different. This was created at the end of the war, not World War II, but World War I. World War I. So here's how this worked. Most people at the time of World War I, most soldiers at the time of World War I were carrying the Springfield 1903, okay? And that was like the infantry rifle of the time. Well, most of the soldiers that went over to the European theater to fight in the war in Europe, in France basically, when they got there, they turned in their Springfield 1903s, and they got this. They got the Enfield rifle. And it's after a British design, but it was retooled to handle the 30-06 round, which was the exact same thing that the Springfield was using. It was retooled basically by Remington. I think Remington made about $500,000. Winchester made about $500,000. And then Eddystone, which was a subsidiary of Remington, made over 1 million of these things. 1 million. And so basically what they did is they created these rifles, both Remington, Eddystone, and Winchester, and then they shipped them over to Europe to be given to the doughboys who were fighting the Germans in the trenches of World War I. So, all that to say, I was confused still. Like, where's the stock? I mean, in the stock here, it looks very old. I mean, it definitely has age to it. It's not a new stock. It's not like somebody took the stock off and then put this on. It's very aged, and I've held enough antique rifles to know that this is an original stock. And so I began to wonder. I looked online. Plus, the sight isn't supposed to be here. It's supposed to have the peep sight. The peep sight was never installed. So it's just, or at least there's no scratches or indication that it was, and then taken out. So I think this is factory. But what happened was I looked at the serial number, and the serial number was like 1,300,271,000 and something. This was the end of the production line, the very end of the production of the Eddystone Enfield rifle. And so that was chambered in 30-06. And so after doing a little bit more research, I realized that every birth date of every Enfield rifle that they produced had the manufacture date at the end of the barrel, the very tip of the barrel. And this one says 11/18. 11/18. That's November of 1918. Well, today is December. We're in December of 2018. This rifle just had a birthday, 100 years old. It's a 100-year-old rifle, and my friends, looking at it, it looks like it's in spectacular shape. It needs some oil. It needs to be cleaned up. The action on it is a little sticky, but it does open up, functions pretty well. Just needs a good coat of oil and cleaning. But it just turned 100 years old. If only I would look as good when I turn 100. But we're going to give this thing a cleaning, a birthday bath, not a bath, but an oil bath, and do some looking around inside here. The bore looks great. It's got good rifling inside of it. I think this could be a shooter. It's 100 years old, but everything looks okay. There's no cracks in the stock. The stock looks solid, and the metal looks good. I don't see hardly any pitting on here on the metal. So, and it's got a Simmons scope that obviously someone put on it later on with a aftermarket clock mounts incorporated. So I think it could be a shooter. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a bath, a birthday cleaning, and then we're gonna take it out to the mountain and put some ball ammo on steel. I got some AR 500 steel out there at about 100 yards, and we'll go ahead and see how it does. But simply amazing. Okay, so I've got my whole kit laid out here. We're going to go ahead and try to do a quick cleaning on this, give it some oil, and just wipe it down. So I've got my Otis kit out here. Normally I use bore snakes with a lot of my rifles, but I don't have a bore snake that's going to fit this. This barrel is really long, so bore snake's not going to work. So I'll have to go ahead and just use my Otis kit. Everything's going to fall around here. So I have 2 Otis rods, one for patches and one's for a brush, and have a couple brushes to brush the inside of the action. I'll go ahead and do that. Have a couple different oils. I really prefer the Militech, but I'm almost out of this, so I might have to get some more, but I got a little bit left for today. And of course the Hops gun oil is fine too. So what am I going to use for patches? I need to run a few patches down this. I think I'm going to go ahead and use my old YouTube shirt. I'll just cut that up and use that as patches to run down the barrel of the gun. I think YouTube would appreciate that. Now I'm sure there's a way, like most bolt actions, to have this bolt come completely out. I've had a lot of bolt actions over my time, and I'm going to have to research that one. But today I'm just going to go ahead and run the brush down through it. I don't think I need to completely remove the bolt. Now, I'm not an expert on these Enfield rifles, but I believe that they had these bolts spring assisted so that when soldiers were in the battlefield, when they wanted to load a new round, these would pop back like that. You see that, how it popped back? And just to aid in the assisting of ejecting the last round and loading the new round. So it's spring assisted, and I don't think most other rifles were like that. I think it was a lot of the some of the European ones were, but I'm pretty sure that was something. I don't know. You guys leave a comment below if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that was something that was common in the Enfield rifles and maybe a couple other European varieties. But now that action is smooth. I mean, it's got the last round bolt hold open, so when you're empty, you can't slam the bolt forward again. You know you're empty, and you can reload. But the action is a lot smoother now than it was when I got it. Night and day difference. So I got all the oil wiped off and using the old YouTube t-shirt, and it's looking really good. So I think now we're gonna go ahead and see what this baby can do on the range. What I've researched is that there were so many of these things left over at the end of World War I that instead of shipping them over to Europe to be used by the doughboys in World War I, they basically just started putting sporting stocks on them so they could sell them in the commercial market. And that's what I think happened to this one. It was basically made the same way all the other ones were, but there was no need for them anymore, so we'll just put a sporting stock on it, put a different sight on it, not even install the peep sight, or at least take it out, and try to sell it to hunters. And so that's what happened to this guy, I think, according to my research. Also, it's interesting to note that there's one group of people who still use this. After World War I, it wasn't really used by anyone else except maybe a few small communist countries. They had tons of these in surplus and no military to use them, because after World War I, soon after, the M1 Garand came into service by our military and replaced the need for the Enfield rifle. And so what do you do with all these? Well, they sold them to all the other small countries. A lot of communist countries used them. But there's one country that still uses this today. It's the Danish. The Danish military uses these up in the Arctic. The Danish military says that they're really well suited for Arctic use and cold weather use. And they say that they're remarkably suitable for polar bears, because I guess polar bears are an issue for the Danish military who operates in the Arctic, and so they use these against the polar bears. They also used to use the 9mm Glock, the Danish military, but they upgraded to the 10mm Glock because, again, it's more well suited for polar bears. So I guess polar bears. And I remember, I guess a couple years ago, there was a lady at the German zoo in Berlin that jumped into the polar bear cage and tried to swim swim over to the polar bears and be with the polar bears, but the polar bears started eating her. So she had to be rescued. And so it was just kind of a funny news article. I think it happened in 2009. Anyway, the Danish military still uses these today against the polar bears. Interesting tidbit. So this is my 100-yard target that I have on the Homestead. It's an AR-500 steel plate. I'm going to go ahead and paint it white so that when we hit it, we can see the marks. You also hopefully will be able to hear the ding on the metal when the round hits the metal. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about 50 yards up the mountain and then try to hit it from there. And then if I can hit it from there, I'll go the full 100 yards up the mountain and see if we can hit the target. There, that looks pretty good. So we're about 50 yards away, maybe a little more. About halfway of 100 yards. Close enough. I'll put my earplugs in and see if I can hit steel. See how well this scope is on. I don't know if I'm really in a mood to spend a lot of ammo to get it sighted in, but we'll try a few rounds and see what happens. This rifle, unlike some of the other ones out there, like the Springfield, holds 6 rounds instead of 5. Magazine will hold 6 rounds. Plus, if you do one in the chamber, it's 7. But it's kind of hard to do that with a bolt action like this. Okay. I believe that is the fire. I don't know if it's on safe. I think that's safe. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can get a comfortable rest. See what we can do. That was dead center. Dead center. I hope you heard the ding. It hit dead center of the plate. Ah, amazing. So it looks like this thing is on. I don't think I need to try another round. Let's go all the way up to the top and see if we can hit it up there. Okay, so we're all set up about 100 yards away from the steel plate. We're going to try to see if we can put one on metal here. A lot of times I come up here when I'm hunting deer. It gives me a really good lay of the land down below. And down below is a lot of times where I put my feeder and corn to bring the deer in. And so it's a great place for a steel target for target practice. So I got the next round loaded in. It's on safe. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can hit it from here. Hopefully you hear the sound of the metal. Hope you guys heard that. We definitely hit it. This is a shooter. We'll try one more. Well, 3 rounds and 3 hits. I'd say it's a shooter. All right, let's go down and take a look. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, 100-year-old rifle. That was my first shot at 50 yards. Second shot or third shot, I'm not sure which one was which. Pulled over to the right a little bit, but I wasn't sure if that was me or just because I didn't have a very good rest on the rifle at 100 yards. But it looks to me like it'll hit target. I mean, it would definitely be a good deer rifle. So when I do videos like this, people always ask me, where do I get my AR-500 steel? The cheapest place, because this stuff is expensive, the cheapest place I have found to get this stuff is on Etsy. Etsy, E-T-S-Y. It's a store online where people can sell their items on there. I think I picked this up for like 30 bucks or less, and that was including shipping. So look on Etsy if you're interested in some AR-500 steel. That's so far been the cheapest place I've been able to find it. Recently I took a trip to South Africa, well, about a year ago, and I met a guy on the plane who sells this stuff. And I lost his contact information. So if you're watching this video, please, please forward me your information. So anyway, this is AR-500 steel at 100 yards. Did pretty well. So I'd say it's a shooter. Nice gun for it being 100 years old. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below, like, subscribe, hit the bell button because YouTube doesn't like to tell you when I put out new content. That forces them to, usually, sometimes, if they don't unsubscribe you. And we'll see you next time on An American Homestead.